I am so excited to talk to you today, Rachel. You are a very, very hard lady to reach. Just to give everyone an idea of how hard you are to reach, tell me a few of the countries you've been to in the last couple months.
All right. Well, we just came from Zambia, and then before that, we were in Borneo, and then before that, we were in Western Sahara, and then Mongolia. So yeah, it's a little
Oh
bit wild.
my goodness. And all of these trips are with your husband, Sebastian, right?
That's right.
And their business expenses?
They are. They are. These are all business trips, all business expenses.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about how you do that. You didn't start that way. If I recall, a little over a year ago, you were in a corporate job at Salesforce. And now, fast forward a year plus in advance, you and Sebastian are traveling around the world, leading trips for photographers, taking pictures of wildcats and whales. Let's go back to that moment and how that transition happened. So, back me up to those last few months of your Salesforce days and talk us through, how did this decision come about?
Yeah. Well, I had almost a 15-year career working in innovation and design in Silicon Valley. Most recently, I was working for Salesforce, which is a very well-respected company with lots of opportunity. I worked with great people, but if I'm being honest, it wasn't a great fit for me, and I was just so uninspired by my work.
Mm.
I think I kind of grew up in the world of design and got to do a lot of cool design projects throughout my career, but this particular chapter, it just started to feel really stale working in kind of one context. At the same time, I was watching my husband kind of live his best life. He is a
Mhm.
professional photographer and has been for his whole career and had been leading these tours for several years before, even before we met. And I think, watching him be so fulfilled by his work was really inspiring to me. And, I think there was another dimension, which was because he did this work, he traveled so much and
Mm.
we saw each other maybe 4 to 5 months out of the year. So there was a little bit of a logistical question of how is my career going to fit with your career and how are we going to make this work? I was already naturally attracted to the work he was doing. I had always been a photographer. In fact, I had kind of chosen my jobs up until this point based on what could allow me to travel. I worked in an emerging markets role at Intuit several years back and got to live in different countries and travel to different countries to work with teams on the ground there. I always tried to get on consulting projects that had an international component, and I would tack on 3 or 4 days to be able to go and photograph tigers in, Kabini or photograph leopards in South Africa. So it was already in my blood. And in fact, several years prior, I had toyed with the option of leaving everything and becoming a safari guide. So this wasn't so far off, but the opportunity started to become really real that actually this is something I could do, is work together with my husband and create and design experiences for people to photograph wild cats, which is what cat expeditions is and whale expeditions. It took me maybe 8 months to really come around to making this decision. And we
Mm.
went back and forth and talked about it a lot. Leaving a very successful, very high paying career is not easy, and it's incredibly scary. But at the end of the day, I think it came down to, I want to feel inspired and moved by my work. I wanted to be able to have a quality of life that was sustainable, which it just wasn't in the work I was doing.
Mm.
And I really wanted to invest in my relationship long term. And so I think all those things came together. And it just became really obvious that even though this was really scary, and even though it was maybe not financially the most lucrative choice, it was the right choice for me.
I love that. I talk so much with aspiring entrepreneurs about defining success in your own terms and how financials is one piece of that, but not the whole picture. So as you thought about making this leap to this business, what did success look like to you that you were striving for?
Yeah. So I think personally, success looked like having a healthy quality of life. I think my stress levels in the corporate world were off the charts. And then partly
Mm.
it's because I'm terrible at managing stress, but it was clear that I wasn't going to be able to do this long term unless I made some really big changes in the way that I dealt with stress. And in my case, I just decided it was kind of time for a different pace. I wanted a life where I could set my own hours, where I could wake up and work out, and where I could take breaks, where I could be able to go and, shoot in the afternoons with my husband. So I think that kind of flexibility and that lifestyle was an investment in my long-term health. So I think success felt
Yeah.
like waking up and feeling healthy and feeling like I had agency over my choices. I think the other kind of more business related metric of success for us was being able to grow and scale a business that truly had impact as kind of the core
Mm.
goal. Um, and I think we've done a really good job at that. Look, we're not making millions of dollars running these tours, but we're able to live a comfortable life, and we're able to have experiences that inspire and move us, and we're able to do that for other people.
Yeah. You said it wasn't an easy decision, that there were these 8 months of intense conversation with Sebastian about if this was the move or not. What was happening during those 8 months? How did you ultimately get from the maybe to the yes, I'm in?
I'll be totally honest that a lot of it was ego. It spent so many years investing in this upward trajectory in kind of corporate life, right? Constantly chasing the next promotion, constantly chasing the next raise, constantly chasing the next, coolest project. But I think this idea that, oh, all of a sudden I'm going to go from, being, senior director at Salesforce to being a nothing, like being a CEO, but of like a little company. It
Mhm.
felt like I was taking a step down, which is totally not true. But at the time, that was the story I was telling myself. And I think the financial piece was also really hard, of giving up um, that level of income and that level of flexibility. It was really hard. I think money and financial security is a value that I was raised with. It's like it's really deep. Um, it's not the same thing for my husband. He is he is much less financially motivated and concerned. It takes up very little of his brain space and his brain energy. And it's really the opposite for me. So I think a lot of it was working through that together, me getting comfortable with having some financial ambiguity, him creating a lot of reassurance that he could pick up, he could give me some time to figure out if this was the right move, and that we could take that financial risk. So I think those were two of the things that were really a struggle for me. But in that time period, we lost a very close friend to a very sudden death, who was quite young and who had just retired, like was literally retiring that year and had all these plans and all these things that, that he was going to do. I think that was honestly a really big moment for me, that pushed me right over the edge pretty quickly. And it came with a lot of time, having heard clients of ours. I had been going on these trips for, for a couple years to this point, but I've heard a lot of our clients talk often about how, they'd spent their career, they're in their 60s or 70s, and they'd spent their careers, waiting to be able to do things like this. And I think that's a common story, that we work so hard until we get to this moment of retirement, and then we get to do the things we love. And I just didn't want that. I didn't want to wait until that point. And you never know if you're going to get to that point. And we say that and it sounds cliche, but I think seeing that happen so close to me was a real eye opener, that, as long as we can put a roof over our heads and eat and, like have a quality of life that we're comfortable with, I don't need to make all the money, and I don't need to be, the best in the organization and get the, highest promotion. I don't need all those things. There's something else that can be enough. And I would much rather be doing that.
Wow. Did you decide in that process to test the waters, or was it really this moment when all of these factors were happening and you said, let's just do it, let's take the leap? Was there a testing period for you?
A little bit. Sebastian had been running some tours
Yeah.
before I joined the business, or before we relaunched cat expeditions and started whale expeditions. And so I would join these tours as his partner, not necessarily in a formal role. And I think that was a great way to test, because it was clear that, one, I loved it, and two, I was a good fit for this kind of work. I have worked in hospitality I spent my teenage and college years in working in hospitality. My roles through consulting, I think, were not called hospitality, but that's really what it was in terms of taking care of clients and crafting experiences for others. And so it was just a real natural fit for me, and I was really good at it. And so I think we both felt that I could be successful in it. The harder part was convincing myself that I didn't need those other things, the big
Yep.
career and the big paycheck. That was really the biggest struggle. I think I knew from the moment I met Sebastian that if I could do what he did, it would make me happy. It just took me a little longer to get there.
Do you remember what decision day felt like when you said, "This is the moment I'm gonna do this"?
Yeah, I mean, it was not a decision that came with like a flood of relief or it didn't I wouldn't say the decision day felt amazing. I mean, I really had a lot of fear. I still had a lot of fear the day I told Salesforce I was leaving. Man, I was afraid, and it was just I was constantly asking myself, "Am I making the right decision? Am I making the right decision?" There was no clarity that like this is going to be the right thing and it's all going to be great. Of course, that was my hope, but decision day it was hard. It's never easy to leave a job, especially people that you love working with. Um, and so, yeah, I was scared. I was scared.
Yeah. You mentioned this uncertainty of, up until the last minute, still not knowing it's the right decision. Now that you're in it, do you remember the moment when you felt like, wow, this is working? This was the right decision?
One of the things that has been, I think, so transformative for me about this choice is that I spend most of my time outdoors. And I think there's something that happens when you spend a lot of time, not just outside, but in nature. You're looking at this force, this thing that is so much bigger than you. And I'm doing that like every day. It's a constant reminder that I'm small, like I'm not the most important thing. I think also being able to do it with Sebastian has just been an absolute delight. Like we are great complements. We work super well together. I think we admire each other and we learn from each other on a constant, daily basis. And that has felt really good. And so I think those two things, they're not moments. I think it always felt like a good thing, but it never I would then also say it never feels easy. Like I never feel like, "Oh, this is so easy," and I'm just like everything's working and we're just going. Like every day I still ask myself, like, how is this going to work? Like is this going to work? How are we going to do this? Like and there's when you start your own business or you grow your own business, like there's always new things that are coming up and there's always new opportunities to consider. And so I think there's never a point that I've been like, everything's great and this is working and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's a constant grind. And yeah, it always feels like there's another step to climb up.
I like that description. It's a grind, but it's the grind you pick.
It's absolutely the grind you pick. Yeah. I have no regrets.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy with my decision, but it's hard.
If yourself a year plus ago at Salesforce could see what this is today, what do you think would have surprised yourself the most about these changes versus what you envisioned originally?
I think so if I were gonna talk to myself a year ago, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that the scale that we're at is surprising to me. We've grown really fast in terms of number of tours, in terms of audience, much faster than I would have thought. I think the opportunity for us to facilitate large scale donations and relationships with donors, I never would have really thought that we would be able to do that. I mean, it makes sense. Our guests tend to be very high net worth and passionate about wildlife and conservation. But I think us as the facilitators of that, it is a bit surprising to me, and it's really exciting. We are actually starting a nonprofit to be able to facilitate more of this, and I never would have thought that we would have done that. I think when I look to the future, I think that we have the potential opportunity to do things like protect huge areas of habitat for cat species, to partner with NGOs that are doing, conservation work on the ground and do targeted projects to help save certain species. We're actually working with a private donor right now to try to save the Borneo Bay cat, which is a really unknown, very, very
Mm.
elusive cat. We actually know almost nothing about it, probably less than any other cat in the whole world. So, projects like that where we're working with someone who's really passionate and is willing to, give a lot of their financial worth to this cause. I mean, it's really inspiring and it's really exciting and it's something I never thought I would be doing.
Wow. So you and I are passionate about many things. We've all had many business ideas over the years, and people listening to this have many business ideas. And the challenge, I think, is not about necessarily coming up with the idea. It's about choosing between all of these many things that we're pulled by and inspired by and excited about. You mentioned earlier that you were interested in one point about being a safari guide. That's
Mm.
only one of many things you were thinking about. What made this choice with cat expeditions the right one for you and those not the right ones to jump on?
Yeah, I think for me, it was a combination of two things. One, I was extremely burned out in my corporate life. So your question is, how do you choose the right thing? And I think in my case, I kind of got pushed into like, or
Mm.
I had pushed myself to the point of something needs to change. And so I think in some ways it was just like the right thing at the right time. The other
Yeah.
thing I would say is having a good partner, whether it's your business partner or more than that, in my case, really helped. I think being able to really talk about these challenges and play it out with someone, and help them reflect back some of the things they're hearing. I think that was really helpful for me in just understanding what some of the risks and challenges and opportunities might look like, but also having the other person to be able to lean on and fall back on when things got harder, really scary. So I think choosing a really good partner if you're going to go into business with someone is really important, and it can be the reason why you feel
Mm.
comfortable making good decisions, or it can be the reason why you have the confidence to take a big leap. So I think if I hadn't had Sebastian, it would have been a lot harder for me to make that leap alone. That's not to say you can't do amazing, you can't start a business on your own. You
Sure.
absolutely can. But I think for me, that was really helpful, is knowing that I had a teammate, I had a partner, and, we were in it together. Uh,
What I'm
Sorry, does
hearing
that
is right idea at the right time with the right partner makes a lot of difference. It's not just the idea itself, but it's who you're doing that idea with and when it's coming along in your life relative to everything else going on.
I think that's exactly right. And also, I think this kind of builds off of right time. I felt like I wasn't doing anything new. I wasn't really learning anything new in the work I was doing. It was a lot of like rinse and repeat and not creatively inspired. So, had I been in a job where I was doing something I was really passionate about, or I was really intellectually challenged, creatively challenged, I don't know that I would have made the same decision. And there have been opportunities that have come up since then that have really made me think, like, oh, but it'd be really cool to do this other thing too. I'm like you, I have lots of I'm like ping pong ball all over, bouncy ball all over the
Yeah.
wall. And there's so many amazing things to do in the world. But I think it came down to I needed to do something different in that moment. This was something that I had confidence in, I was excited about, and I just figured I would try it. My
Yep.
husband and I went into it really with, this is going to be a year of trying things and seeing if it feels like the right fit. And if it's not, then you look for something else. So, he was confident and comfortable taking the business himself if it wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
But we gave ourselves a year to kind of make sure, like, this is what I want. And, uh, it is.
I love that. Did you formalize that 1 year check-in?
Yes, and we had lots of check-ins. So we had a check-in pretty much every quarter to sort of look at, how are things going? How is this feeling? Where are we financially? Are we comfortable? Because Sebastian has a much different threshold of financial comfort with financial ambiguity than I do. It was important for us to really look at where we were and for us to make sure I was comfortable. And so, yeah, we formalized those check-ins, and a year came and it was just very clear we had a ton of momentum and we were both feeling great, and so we kept going.
Amazing. And give us just an idea of what that momentum means. How many tours are you running every year for how many people?
Yeah. So we started with maybe 6 different tours that we were consistently running, and now we're running 15, including private tours. So we've really increased the number of kind of private tours that we're running, and what we call field expeditions, where we kind of take donors into research, out with research teams and do those sort of behind the scenes experiences. Our audience is, we have a ton of repeat guests, which is just so amazing to see. I
Wow.
really didn't expect that we'd have so much repeat business. But it turns out there's a lot of people in the world who really want to see wild cats and who want to see all of them. So we have about 50% of our guests are repeat, and then 50% of our guests are new to us. So we
Wow.
run only small group tours, which means we are operating at a pretty low volume on purpose. We want intimate experiences. We want to reduce the disturbance to wildlife. So all of our tours are between 2 and 6 guests. So yeah, so times 14, that's kind of what we're looking at per year, plus a handful of private tours. We also do workshops and other things on the side. And we've just launched a series called Chasing Cats, which is about
Amazing. I watched
uh,
it. I love it. Everybody should see it.
Thanks, Dana. Yeah, it's really fun. So my husband is trying to photograph all 40 cats of the world, which actually hasn't been done before. So he's got fewer than 10 left, and we're documenting kind of the effort to go and photograph these in partnership with Panthera. So it's been cool because I've gotten to see a little bit of what this assignment work looks like, and actually, play a hand in it, doing a lot of video. And then we're also starting a new thing called Chasing Cats Club, which is going to be a way for people who maybe can't go or aren't able to go on our tours in the field to access a lot of the knowledge of wild cats. We're going to invite researchers and experts in cats to come on and talk about these topics, and then also be able to access information about how to find and photograph wild cats. So we want to make the stuff that happens on our tours a little bit more accessible, and so we'll do that as an online based business.
Amazing. I didn't know you were working on that. That's super exciting.
Yeah, lots of
I
fun
love
projects in
that.
the hopper.
I have two last fun questions.
Okay.
So, one is that I talk to people all the time who say, and I'm sure you do too, I love travel. How do I get paid to do this? And I imagine that there's a bit of a romantic vision of that you being on the inside of traveling being a huge part of your job. There's some great things that are probably what people expected to get out of it. And there might be some less romantic elements. I'm just guessing. So, break it down for somebody who has this vision.
There's a lot of our life that seems very glamorous and very romantic and is not. You're absolutely right. Being on planes, like most of the time, is extremely tiring. I happen to have a fear of flying, so it's not awesome for me. I really hate flying, and we just spend so
I
much of
didn't
our
know that.
time in airports and flying. Yeah, I think the other thing is, it turns out that when you go and look for cats, they tend to be in places that are very hot, very dry, sometimes very humid, in climates that can be challenging. So yeah, for me, I mean, it's like I've got heat rash all the time, and my hair always looks crappy. I wear olive green basically 99% of the time. So there's a lot of things logistically that have just been big lifestyle changes for me. Um, I think the other big one is just that we're on the road most of the time. So our time to be with the people we love, to really spend time with them, even to catch up on the phone. I think that you've sent me like 6 text messages in the last year, and I don't think I've
That's right.
responded to most of them. And it's not because I don't love you and don't want to talk to you. You're not alone. It's because
I
when you own your own
understand.
business, and you own your own business where you're traveling 90+ % of the time, it's a lot. So yeah, I think we're tired. We're tired, overwhelmed, overloaded, and we also just are so grateful for it all. Like, we have an amazing life and
Yeah.
nothing to complain about. But yeah, it is you do have to have it. It's definitely like a marathon all the time. It's like running a marathon all the time. Our hope is that we're strong enough to have the endurance to continue doing it. But we We actually have hired a couple of guides that we're in the process of training, and our hope is that we'll be able to not just grow the business with them, but also give ourselves a little bit of space to be able to do other projects and do other things that allow us to spend more time with our families and friends, which is important.
I love that. I really appreciate the real talk, and I'm sure other people will as well.
I don't know, I'm covered in like heat wrap.
My goodness. Well, I think it goes back to the grind you pick or the hustle you pick, that the good outweighs the bad. It's not all glamorous and all perfect, but it's amazing, and it's your choice and what works for you. I love that. Now, the question I want to end on is that the purpose of this podcast is to highlight unexpected businesses and unusual success, businesses that would make most people say, "Oh my God, I had no idea that was a thing. That is so cool." So for me, you are that, and you fit those criteria. Who is that for you? What is a business? You don't need to know them personally. What is a business that you've seen where you said, I cannot believe that's a thing. That is so cool.
My very, very close friend, one of my best friends, his name is Andrew Evans, and we worked together at IDEO. But he did something very similar to what I did, which was left an incredibly successful, not necessarily traditional, but corporate design career to start a business called the Magic Patio, which is a magic theater in San Francisco. And it is just like, he is the most inspiring business owner to me. I mean, he's just done such incredible things with the brand. He's, built an amazing team around the patio. And I mean, that place sells out like every single day. So it's really cool to see. And it's a really unusual business. And what I love about it is that he's bringing a really unique set of skills, background in theater, depth in industrial and product design, and just great business skills. He's bringing it all together into this pretty like non-traditional magic setting. And I just really love that. So I'm really inspired by Andrew and love the Magic Patio and think it's a really cool business.
I could not agree more. You took me to one of his shows, and I
Yeah.
still think about it all the time. He's on my short list of people that I want to talk to. So I will ask you for an intro. Absolutely
Good.
amazing.